like part about that is I usually call it like a triangle, right?
Okay.
So if you got the base of the triangle is HRV and the 8 controllables. So 8 controllables being exercise, nutrition, hydration, sleep, immune function, environment, mindset, and self-care. So when you take these 8 lifestyle-based components, pair it to HRV, which is that measure of how your body's handling stress and strain, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, it empowers you as the individual to know, what am I doing in my day-to-day life that is working or not working? Once we have a solid understanding of the foundation of behaviors and the things that we're being exposed to every single day, we can now take the step to the next level, which is your testing. Let's get a little bit more understanding so we can personalize these changes, personalize your supplementation, personalize your nutrition, personalize your immune function, personalize your hydration and what you need from a electrolyte or amino acid standpoint. And then lastly, let's get to the top with tools like your red light, your cold plunge, your sauna, your peptides, your IVs, like all of these things. But what we do is in society and what the world tells us is let's flip that on its head.
We just talked about this. Like, bro, you're nailing it on the head right now.
And let's just
give you these pills and these hormones and these peptides. But if you don't change your behavior, then nothing will change. You can't, like, it's like people think that you inject steroids and all of a sudden you look like a bodybuilder. No, it doesn't work like that. And so we literally just talked about this. You nailed that. That's so true. Like, let's start with the basics first. What's your go-to? I know you said wearables. I have one of those 8 sleep mattresses.
They're awesome.
So I get the HRV. What is considered, like, how do we know what is good and what's not? Because, like, it'll say in range. Is that a good thing, or is that, you know what I mean? Or are you supposed to be
totally?
Yeah. So I honestly, I'm a little old school, I'll be honest. And I basically, go with the rule of thumb of, do I feel good today? That kind of thing. I'm not a big fan of wearables. I did get the 8 sleep because my wife and I we sleep hot. Like, we're always hot, and then we're different.
2 different temperatures.
Yes. And she's actually way hotter than me in both senses of the word. But I'm curious to know, do you have like your go-to, devices that you think are like better than, I see you're wearing one now. So.
Yeah. So I'll answer a question here previous, or touch on the point first, is when it comes to wearables, what we look for, and just the way our society has been driven, whether it's athletics, whether it's just business people or high performing individuals, oftentimes we use data as like a crutch to say like, I'm good. I'm justifying my poor decision today, right? Like I
drank all last night, but hey, my HRV is still good, so I guess I'm okay. Yeah.
Or I drank all night last night, my HRV is low. I need to take the day off today.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Like, using it as an excuse.
Exactly. Yeah. Using it as the excuse of why not to do something, rather than using it as a tool to empower you and be like, oh my gosh, I drank last night. Look at what my HRV did. What do I need to do today to ultimately reverse what I did last night? Need to get into the sauna, need to hydrate properly, need to get on a better sleep routine tonight, need to get a little bit more breath work in, need to get my workout in. Like, it becomes so important. And then to see the difference between when you go out and you have your poor behaviors versus when you have your great behaviors, look at the difference in HRV, an empowerment tool, something that helps you storytell to really change what your thought process is about these behaviors in a real impactful way and help with the buy-in factor. When you talk about HRV has been misused in our society and in fitness and in health so poorly. Okay. It really bothers me because it's been used as this weapon, something that allows people to, again, justify poor behaviors and is really misunderstood. When you look at what HRV is at its core, you have your EKG, right?
Yep.
And at the top of the EKG, that's the biggest push of blood from your heart, is called your R wave. If we were to sit here and you've got a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute, by nature, you would think, oh, my heart is beating at 1 beat per second. 60 beats per minute divided by 60 seconds is 1 beat per second.
Right.
But it's not how our body functions. Our body only has our heartbeat when it's necessary. So if we look at HRV, it might be in the same resting heart rate of 60 seconds, it might beat at 787 milliseconds, 920 milliseconds, 1.1 seconds, 947 milliseconds. But in that same minute, your heart has beaten 60 times. And so the greater the variability, the greater parasympathetic your body is, the less stress, the ready to take on stress it is, the more recovered it is. Think of it like just loosey-goosey. Your heart's just like, yeah, I'll beat whenever, man. Like, I feel really good. I'm ready to take on stress. Versus when you get into a stressful situation, It's like, I got to beat, I got to keep Manning alive, I got to beat, and it gets a little bit more regulated.
So just so I hear you correctly, because I want to follow this. This is really good. The more variability, the better.
The better.
Okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to make sure I heard it, and so especially with the audience. So.
And so what you'll see is see a higher HRV number.
Okay.
So when you wake up in the morning, you might have a 75 HRV versus a 35 is when you usually are. 35 means that you're suppressed and in a sympathetic state. So there's stress going on. The crazy part about this, you could have a nasty fight with your wife the night before, go to bed, and wake up with the exact same HRV depleted as if you ran a marathon the day before. The body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional stress.
That's fascinating.
I tell this story all the time. Had a client who ran a marathon, had a client going through a divorce, had a client who just sold his business, and had another client who was really trying to just like figure out who he was.
Okay.
Every single one of them, although different numbers, had the same HRV downward curve, which is just so crazy to think about, that our body has no clue the stress that it's under. And so if we think of our body as a cup, right? And we can only eliminate so many stressors at a time. We only have so much capacity to fill up in this cup.
Right.
But if all of a sudden you go work out and you're pushing yourself really hard, and then you go to work and you're trying to figure out how to make everything like function, and you're worrying about how to pay bills, and then you go home and you're running around with newborn kids, and your wife is on you, and you're having like an argument, and then you're not sleeping well, and then you're not eating well. Well, man, your cup's full. Your cup's overflowing. It doesn't have anywhere for this stress to go. So how does it start showing up? Symptoms such as headache, fatigue, nausea, anxiety, that the world has told us is normal. This is what it takes. And then 5 years later, 8 years later, 1 year later, 25 years later, we're sitting here with diabetes, we're sitting here with dementia, we're sitting here with a mental breakdown.
Right.
All things that are preventable if we're all of a sudden have a KPI such as HRV to give us this understanding. I tell this story as well. I love this. We know what true health looks like, but we don't know where we are today. Came from Canada. I talked to you about this, and it's home to the biggest mall in the world, at West Edmonton Mall, like 45 different phases. It's got like water park, Galaxyland.
I think I've read about this.
Oh, indoor golf center. Like it's got dolphins and submarines and a big whale that goes around.
No way.
It's nuts. So I went back there and I went and did my shopping. I parked outside of the water park. Big sign, green sign, D3. Walked in for 2 or 3 hours, and I was coming out. I'm like, man, water park, D3, that's where my car is, but I don't know how to get there. I went to the directory, and when I looked at it, I saw, okay, water park's right here, but what was the next thing that I looked for? At star, it says you are here.
Where to start from.
Yep, you are here.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't know where you're going.
Exactly. So many of us in our health journeys, we know what true health looks like. We know what it wants to feel like. We know what it wants to look like, but we don't know where we are today.
Yeah.
And so we keep grabbing at things. We keep grabbing at straws. We keep trying to find our way to this area, but it wasn't built for us. That tool wasn't what we needed. We didn't know what we needed because we didn't have a KPI. We didn't know where we were. So we continually stay lost. We continually stay walking through this mall randomly until we stop, we pause, we look at a map, we say, hey, this is where you are. This is where you need to go.
And tell people what KPI is, because to a lot of people, they don't. So it's key performance indicators, right?
Correct.
So, you know, a lot of times I'll be in these marketing meetings and they'll be throwing out acronyms and stuff, and I'm like writing them down and then Googling them later. So I always remember that when guys like us start throwing out those things, to make sure that we tell people what they mean.
So you need like just a key indicator, like a key number, something that lets you know where you are, so that all of a sudden, once you see where you are, you're like, oh, I'm just one decision away from being where I needed to be.
One thing you do a really good job of is you know, doing these. I have a way of explaining things, but you have an amazing way of explaining this. Like it's really the first time. And I love meeting people that say the same thing, but in a different way that is easier for people to digest. And I think people are going to get a lot out of this because of the way you're describing it, because of these practical examples. Like the mall, that's such a great way. Rich is probably one of the best communicators I've ever watched, and he does a really good job of that. And you're reminding me of those, like giving those practical examples that people can take and then apply. Tangible, yeah. So I'm in awe of that. Like, so congrats on that, because you nailed that. That description of finding out where you are to ultimately get to where you want to be. I talk about it more from a like just doing standpoint. You know, I probably don't do a good job of explaining the why. I just put people in a better position and try to help them. But that was really good.